In April 1908, a farmhouse in LaPorte, Indiana, burned to the ground. Neighbors found 4 charred bodies in the basement. 3 were children. The 4th was a headless woman. At first, everyone pitied the homeowner. Her name was Belle Gunness. People thought she was a tragic victim. They were wrong. She was a monster. Look at the facts. Belle was 6 feet tall. She weighed over 200 pounds. She was incredibly strong. She ran a small farm, but farming did not make her rich. Insurance did. Her first husband died on the exact day his 2 insurance policies overlapped. Belle collected more than $8,000. That was a fortune in 1900. She used the money to buy the Indiana property. Then, her second husband died. A heavy meat grinder fell on his head. At least, that is what Belle told the coroner. The town found it suspicious, but Belle cried. She looked devastated. She collected another $3,000. Soon, Belle needed more money. She did not want to wait for another husband, so she started writing letters. She placed ads in Norwegian-language newspapers across the Midwest. The ads promised love, a beautiful farm, and a comfortable life. But there was a catch. She only wanted wealthy men. The ads specifically asked for suitors to bring cash, not checks, not bank drafts, actual paper cash. And she told them to keep the trip a secret. Men started arriving at the LaPorte train station. They carried trunks. They carried their life savings. Andrew Helgelien was one of them. He brought $3,000 in cash. He walked onto Belle's farm. He was never seen alive again. This went on for years. Neighbors noticed men arriving. They noticed the men never left. Belle told people they went back home. She said they changed their minds. Nobody questioned her. She was a respectable widow. She went to church. But Andrew Helgelien had a brother named Asla. Asla was worried Andrew had stopped writing. Asla knew Andrew went to Indiana with all his money. He wrote to Belle. Belle told him Andrew left for Norway. Asla did not believe her. He packed his bags. He decided to travel to Indiana to find his brother. Belle knew Asla was coming. She knew her time was up. On April 28, 1908, the farmhouse went up in flames. The local authorities arrested Belle's farmhand, Ray Lamphere. They blamed him for the fire. But then, Asli Helgelien arrived. He demanded the police dig up the yard. He wanted to find his brother. The sheriff got a shovel. They started digging in the hog pen. They found Andrew Helgelien. His body was cut into pieces. He was wrapped in oilcloth. They kept digging. They found another body. Then another. They found hands. They found feet. They found skulls. The yard was a graveyard. Investigators found the remains of at least 11 people. Some believe the real number is over 40. Belle had poisoned her suitors. She used strychnine in their coffee. Then she carried them to the basement. She used her strength to chop them up. She buried them in the mud where she fed her pigs. But the biggest mystery remained. Who was the headless woman in the basement? Doctors measured the charred collarbones. The body belonged to a woman who weighed about 140 pounds. Belle weighed over 200. The head was never found. People realized the truth. Belle did not die in the fire. She bought a corpse. She decapitated it to hide the identity. She set the fire to fake her own death. She took her cash and vanished. Ray Lamphere went to prison. On his deathbed, he confessed. He said he helped Belle bury the bodies. He said she escaped with hundreds of thousands of dollars. For decades, people reported seeing Belle in Chicago. in San Francisco, in New York, but she was never caught. Did she live out her days in luxury? Did she keep killing? The soil in LaPorte held her secrets, but Belle took the final answer to her grave, wherever that grave is. In 1902, a woman named Belle Gunness bought a 48-acre farm in LaPorte, Indiana. She paid for it in cold cash. Over the next 6 years, more than 40 people walked onto that property. Not one of them was ever seen leaving alive. You probably think you can spot a killer. You think they look mean or live on the fringes of society. But Belle did not fit that picture. She immigrated to Indiana from a tiny village in Norway. To her neighbors, she was the definition of the American dream. She appeared ambitious, independent, and completely determined to build a better life. If you walked past her farm in the early 1900s, you would see an ordinary, successful farm owner. You would see a grieving widow rebuilding her future. Belle was a large, strong woman. She was always polite, attended church, and donated to local charities. Neighbors trusted her with their secrets and their children. But behind this wholesome public image, a terrifying pattern was already taking shape. It started with her first husband, Mads Sorensen, in Chicago. Their home and business burned down under highly suspicious circumstances. They used the insurance money to buy a new property. Then, in 1900, Mads died suddenly on the exact day his two conflicting life insurance policies overlapped. Belle collected over $8,000. That is worth more than $250,000 today. With that money, Belle bought her Indiana farm. She married her second husband, Peter Gunness, in 1902. Just 8 months later, Peter was dead. Belle claimed a heavy sausage grinder fell off a high shelf and struck him in the head. The local coroner was highly suspicious, but Belle wept so convincingly and seemed so utterly devastated that the town took her side. She walked away with another $3,000. Soon, questions began to emerge. People connected to the Gunness farm kept dying under unusual circumstances. Her infant children died of acute colitis, a condition with symptoms that look identical to arsenic poisoning. Each time a child died, Belle collected a small insurance check. Some of these incidents were ruled accidental by local authorities, who simply could not believe a mother could do such things. Others were completely dismissed. Yet the pattern was undeniable if you knew where to look. Each tragedy benefited Belle financially. Property changed hands. Bank accounts grew. Her farm expanded, adding new fences and a large hog pen. Still, no one suspected the full truth. They saw a hard-luck woman who kept suffering terrible tragedies, not a predator who was orchestrating them. Then came the advertisements. Belle began placing ads in Norwegian-language newspapers across the Midwest. The ads targeted lonely, wealthy bachelor immigrants. She wrote that she was a comely widow who owned a large, valuable farm. She wanted a partner, but there was a strict condition. Any suitor who wanted to visit her had to sell all their property, withdraw their entire life savings in cash, and bring it to LaPorte. She warned them to keep the trip a complete secret. Men started arriving at the farm from Wisconsin, Minnesota, and North Dakota. They carried their life savings sewn into their coats. Belle welcomed them with a warm smile and a home-cooked meal. Neighbors saw these men helping with chores, looking happy, and then, a few days later, they would disappear. If anyone asked, Belle simply said they got homesick and left in the middle of the night. People believed her, but the disappearances kept happening. Andrew Helgelien was one of those men. He traveled from South Dakota with $3,000 in cash. When Andrew stopped replying to letters, his brother Asel grew worried. He wrote to Belle. Belle claimed Andrew had simply gone to Chicago, but Asel did not believe her. He decided to travel to LaPorte to find his brother himself. Just as Asel was making his way to Indiana, the Gunness farm mysteriously burned to the ground. In the ashes, investigators found the bodies of Belle's children alongside a headless female corpse. At first, everyone assumed Belle was a victim, but when they started digging up the hog pen, they found the truth. They found Andrew. They found dozens of others, all dismembered, all buried in shallow graves. So who was the headless woman in the ashes? Was it Belle, or did she find one last victim to take her place while she escaped with her fortune? To this day, nobody knows where Belle Gunness went. $31,000. That is what Andrew Helgelian carried in his pocket. He boarded a train to LaPorte, Indiana. The year was 1908. He was 45 years old. He was incredibly lonely, and he believed he was going to meet his future wife. Her name was Belle Gunness. She was a wealthy widow with a large farm. Or so her advertisement said. Belle placed these small ads in newspapers across the Midwest. The text was always very simple. She wanted a good, honest partner, someone to help run her property. But there was one strict condition. You had to bring cash, no checks, no bank drafts. You had to withdraw everything you owned. You had to bring it in person to prove your good intentions. Andrew was not the first to read these words. Dozens of men saw them. They looked at their quiet lives. They saw a chance at happiness. They packed their suitcases. They closed their bank accounts. They bought one-way tickets. Belle's letters were incredibly warm. She wrote to these men for months. She told them she was lonely. She said her heart beat faster every time she saw their handwriting. In one letter to Andrew, she told him to sell his land immediately. She wrote, "Do not send money through the banks. Keep it close to your body. Do not tell your family where you're going." Andrew did exactly what she asked. He sold his farm in South Dakota. He packed his life into a single trunk. He boarded the train. Imagine sitting on that train. You are watching the cold winter landscape pass by. You have your entire life savings sewn into your vest. You think you are heading toward a warm home. You think you are heading toward a loving wife. A fresh start. But you are actually walking into a slaughterhouse. These men arrived at the LaPorte station. Belle was always there to meet them. Sometimes she brought her buggy. Sometimes they walked to her farmhouse together. Neighbors saw them. They saw tall, strong men carrying heavy bags. They saw them walking down the dirt road toward Belle's gate. And then, nothing. The men were never seen again. They did not walk back to the station. They did not buy return tickets. They just stopped existing, Emil tell. Ole Budsberg, Thomas Lindboe, the list of names goes on and on. Ole Budsberg arrived in May 1907. He brought over $1,000. That was a fortune back then. 3 days later, his sons in Wisconsin lost all contact. They wrote letters to Belle. Belle wrote back. She told them their father had left her farm. She said he went to Chicago. She said he was probably drinking his money away. She lied with absolute calm. For years, nobody put the pieces together. People moved around a lot in those days. Men went looking for work and vanished all the time. Belle was just a quiet widow raising her children. But behind closed doors, A horror show was happening. Belle was over 6 feet tall. She weighed over 200 pounds. She was incredibly strong. She fed her guests. She gave them coffee. And then she put poison in their food. Or she hit them with a meat cleaver while they slept. Once they were dead, she did not just bury them. She took them to the basement. She dissected them. She chopped their bodies into small pieces. She buried the remains in the hog pen. She watched her pigs eat the evidence. She did this over and over for years. By early 1908, families started asking too many questions. Andrew's brother, Asle Helgelien, was suspicious. He wrote to Belle. He said he was coming to Indiana to find his brother. Belle knew her time was up. On April 28, 1908, her farmhouse burned to the ground. Inside the ruins, investigators found 4 bodies. 3 were Belle's children. The 4th was a headless woman. Was it Belle? Or did she kill another victim to confuse police? Did she escape with the money? Investigators started digging up the yard. They found soft spots in the dirt. They found human bones. Dozens of teeth, watches, jewelry. They found Andrew Helgelien. They found Ole Budsberg. How many men did Belle actually kill? Some say 14, some say 40. And the biggest question remains, did Belle die in that fire, or did she walk away with your money? On April 28, 1988, a massive fire leveled a quiet farmhouse in LaPorte, Indiana. The local sheriff, Albert Smutzer, thought he was dealing with a simple tragedy. He found 4 bodies in the cellar, a woman and 3 children. The woman was missing her head. If you walked onto that property back then, you would have smelled nothing but wet ash. But that was just the beginning of the nightmare. Within days, a man named Asle Helgelien arrived at the ruins. He was looking for his brother, Andrew. Andrew had traveled to the farm to meet a wealthy widow named Belle Gunness. Andrew had brought his life savings of $3,000. Then he vanished. Asle did not believe his brother died in the fire. He wanted to dig. Sheriff Smutzer gave him a shovel. You can imagine the tension as they walked to the soft, muddy ground near the hog pen. They dug down about 4 feet. The shovel hit something solid. It was a burlap sack. Inside, they found 2 hands, 2 feet, and a torso. Asle looked closer. He recognized his brother's coat. This was not a tragic house fire. It was a crime scene. The sheriff hired dozens of local men with shovels. They began systematically digging up the entire yard. The crowds gathered by the thousands. People brought picnic baskets to watch the excavation. What they uncovered over the next 2 weeks would have turned your stomach. In the first pit, they found more burlap sacks. Inside were the remains of young children. Then they found another pit, and another. The shovel operators kept striking soft earth. Every soft spot in the dirt held a new horror. They found limbs. They found torsos wrapped in oilcloth. The bodies were covered in quicklime to speed up decomposition. But the lime had actually preserved some of the evidence. In the second pit, they found the body of a young woman. It was Jenny Olson. She was Belle's foster daughter. Jenny had disappeared 2 years earlier. Belle told the neighbors Jenny had gone to a finishing school in California. She had never left the farm. The diggers kept going. The smell was so bad, the workers had to smoke heavy cigars just to keep breathing. They found another man. Then another. Most of them were wealthy bachelors. They had all answered the same Lonely Hearts advertisement in Midwestern newspapers. The ad promised a beautiful home and a partnership with a wealthy widow. But it had one condition. They had to bring cash. No checks, No bank drafts, just cold, hard cash. Each victim followed the same pattern. They arrived with thousands of dollars. They wrote one letter home, saying they loved the farm. Then they disappeared forever. The investigators found watches, rings, and belt buckles in the dirt. They matched these items to missing men from Wisconsin, Illinois, and Minnesota. The numbers kept climbing. 5 bodies, 8 bodies, 12 bodies. The newspapers went wild. Reporters from Chicago and New York took over the local hotels. They called it the murder farm. But the biggest mystery was still in the cellar. Who was the headless woman found in the ashes? Doctors measured the body. It weighed around 115 pounds. But Belle Gunness was a giant of a woman. She stood nearly 6 feet tall and weighed over 250 pounds. The headless body was far too small to be Belle. Did Belle Gunness die in that fire? Or did she set the fire herself to fake her own death? The police arrested her hired hand, Ray Lamphere. He claimed Belle had planned the whole thing. He said she found a housekeeper from Chicago, killed her, cut off her head, and placed her body in the cellar to trick the police. Then she took her millions and ran. The search went on for months. They searched the swamps. They dragged the lakes. They checked every train station in the country. But Belle Gunness was gone. She had left behind a field of bones and a pile of ashes. To this day, nobody knows how many men actually died on that Indiana farm. Some say 14, some say 40, and you have to wonder if Belle Gunness got away with the perfect crime. In April 1908, a massive fire destroyed a farm in Indiana. Inside the smoking ruins, searchers found 4 bodies. 3 of them were Belle Gunness's young children. The 4th body was headless. Investigators immediately assumed it was Belle. But then they pulled out a tape measure. The measurements did not make sense. Belle Gunness was a massive woman. She stood 5 feet 8 inches tall. She weighed over 250 pounds. Locals knew her as a powerhouse. She could carry heavy crates of meat alone. But the headless body in the ash was tiny. It measured barely 5 feet 3 inches. It weighed perhaps 130 pounds. Even without a head, the math was wrong. The clothes on the body did not fit Belle. The skeleton was far too small. The local sheriff desperately needed proof. He hired a local dentist to search the ruins. The dentist sifted through the hot ash for days. He eventually found a gold dental bridge. He claimed it belonged to Belle. He said he recognized his own handiwork. But the people in town did not buy it. They suspected the teeth were planted. They knew Belle had visited Chicago just days before. She had emptied her bank accounts.
She withdrew over $250,000 in cash. That is millions in today's money.
Why would she burn her own house with all that cash inside? She wouldn't. She took the money and ran. Think about what the police found next. They started digging up the farm. They found bodies in the hog pen. They found bodies under the soft dirt. More than a dozen victims lay buried. Men who answered her lonely heart's ads. They brought their life savings to her farm. Then they vanished. Belle butchered them like livestock. She kept their gold and cash. The scale of the horror was shocking. The whole country wanted her caught. Wanted posters went up in every train station. Her face was on every front page, yet no one could find her. The dentist found some fake teeth. He claimed they belonged to Belle, but many people believed he lied. The skull itself was never found. Only a few bone fragments remained. The town was highly suspicious. They believed Belle paid off the dentist. She had plenty of money to bribe witnesses. Then there was Ray Lamphere. He was Belle's hired hand. He was also her secret lover. Police arrested Ray for arson and murder. He went to prison. But before he died behind bars, Ray confessed to his cellmate. He said Belle was alive. He helped her escape. According to Ray, Belle planned the escape for months. She hired a housekeeper from Chicago. The woman looked slightly like Belle, but smaller. Belle poisoned the housekeeper. Then she chopped off her head. She took the head and buried it far away. She placed the body in the basement. She killed her own children to make the scene look real. Then she set the house on fire. Ray drove her to a train station at midnight. She boarded on April 28, 1908, a farmhouse in LaPorte, Indiana, burned to the ground. Inside, firemen found 4 bodies. 3 were Belle Gunness's children. The 4th was a headless woman. Everyone assumed it was Belle, but then they started digging. You have to look at the numbers. Sheriff Smutzer hired men with shovels. They went to the hog pen. In just 2 days, they pulled out 5 bodies, then 10, then 12. Some bodies were cut into pieces. Some were packed in quicklime. The town became a tourist attraction. Thousands of people bought tickets just to watch the digging. They sold hot dogs and popcorn by the graves. You are looking at a crime scene that looked like a carnival. But the biggest question remained. Who was that headless woman in the house? The head was never found. That was problem number 1. Problem number 2 was the size. The headless body weighed about 75 pounds less than Belle. Belle was a massive woman. She stood 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighed over 200 pounds. This body was small. The local dentist, Dr. Norton, was called in. He searched the ashes for days. Finally, he found a gold bridge with 2 artificial teeth. He swore he made that bridge for Belle. The coroner closed the case. Belle was dead, or was she? Let us talk about Ray Lamphere. He was Belle's hired hand. He was also her discarded lover. Ray was arrested for arson and murder. During his trial, the defense brought up a strange fact. Belle had cleared out her bank accounts. She withdrew over $30,000 in cash just days before the fire. That is nearly $1 million today. Why would a woman who planned to die in a fire withdraw all her cash? Ray was convicted of arson, but not murder. On his deathbed in 1909, he confessed to a priest. He said he helped Belle fake her death. He said the headless body belonged to a housemaid Belle hired just days before. Belle killed her, chopped off her head, took her money, and hopped on a train. For the next 30 years, the police received hundreds of letters. People saw Belle in Chicago. They saw her in San Francisco. They saw her in New York. A woman matching her description was spotted buying a ticket to Los Angeles with a bag full of cash. Every lead went cold. You have to wonder how someone that distinct could just disappear. She had a thick Norwegian accent. She had a massive physical presence. Yet she vanished. Then came 1931. A woman named Esther Carlson was arrested in Los Angeles. She was accused of poisoning a man named August Lindstrom for his money. People who knew Belle Gunness looked at photos of Esther. They said the resemblance was terrifying. Esther was waiting for her trial in a jail cell. But before the truth could come out, she died of tuberculosis. She took her real name to the grave. In 2008, Scientists decided to settle this once and for all. They exhumed the headless body from the Laporte cemetery. They wanted to compare its DNA with letters Belle had written. They licked the envelopes, so there should have been DNA. But the envelopes were too old. The DNA was degraded. The test failed. The mystery stayed locked, so you are left with the facts. At least 14 victims. Probably more than 40. A chest of gold coins that disappeared. A suitcase of cash that was never found. And a woman who walked out of her own burning house into the dark. Did she die in that fire? Or did she spend the rest of her life spending the money of the men she buried in her yard? Look at the dates. Look at the money. It does not add up. What do you think happened to Belle? In April 1908, a farmhouse in LaPorte, Indiana, burned to the ground. Inside, firefighters found 4 bodies. 3 were children. The 4th was a woman without a head. Everyone assumed it was Belle Gunness. She was a wealthy, widowed farm owner. But then, the neighbors started asking questions. Where did all her suitors go? For years, lonely men traveled to this exact farm. They brought their life savings. None of them were ever seen leaving. The police started digging in the hog pen. They found hands, feet, bones, wrapped in oilcloth. The deeper they dug, the worse it got. They pulled out more than a dozen bodies. Some estimates say she killed over 40 people. This was not a tragic house fire. It was a massive crime scene. Let us look at how she did it. Belle was a Norwegian immigrant. She stood 6 feet tall and weighed over 200 pounds. She was strong enough to carry heavy loads alone. In the early 1900s, she placed ads in Midwestern newspapers. She called herself a comely widow. She wanted a good man to help run her farm. But there was a catch. The men had to bring cash, not checks, not bank drafts, actual paper money. One man named Andrew Helgelian answered the ad. He withdrew his entire life savings of $3,000. He arrived at the farm in January 1908. Within days, he vanished. His brother back in South Dakota got worried. He started writing letters to Belle. She told him Andrew had left for Norway. But the brother did not believe her. He decided to travel to Indiana to find his brother himself. Belle knew her time was up. Andrew's brother was coming. She needed a way out. On April 27, 1908, she went to town. She wrote her will. She told her lawyer she was terrified of her former farmhand, Ray Lamphere. She claimed Ray threatened to kill her and burn her house down. Hours later, the house went up in flames. When the smoke cleared, investigators found the headless female body. Beside it lay Belle's 3 children. Ray Lamphere was arrested immediately. He was charged with murder and arson, but the local sheriff had a problem. The headless body was far too small. Belle Gunness was a massive woman. The corpse they found was barely over 5 feet tall. It weighed less than 140 pounds. The clothes on the body belonged to Belle, but the bones did not match. The trial of Ray Lamphere became a national sensation. Crowds gathered outside the courthouse. Newspapers printed daily updates. Ray swore he did not set the fire. He claimed Belle was still alive. On his deathbed a year later, Ray finally told his story to a priest. He confessed that he helped Belle bury her victims. He said she poisoned them first. Then she chopped them up in the cellar. He also claimed Belle did not die in the fire. He said she planned the whole thing. She hired a housemaid just days before. She killed the maid, cut off her head, and placed her own rings on the maid's fingers. Then she set the house on fire and escaped with over $200,000 in cash. That is worth millions today. For decades, sightings of Belle Gunness popped up all over America. Some swore they saw her in Chicago. Others claimed she was living under a new name in California. In 1931, a woman named Esther Carlson died in Los Angeles while awaiting trial for poisoning a man for his money. People noticed she looked exactly like an older Belle, but there were no fingerprints to prove it. The mystery remains unsolved. Today, the Indiana farm is just an empty field. At sunset, the wind blows through the tall grass. It feels like the ground is still holding on to its secrets. You can stand on that dirt and feel the weight of what happened. Did a brilliant monster pull off the perfect escape? Or did she burn with her victims? Tell me your theory in the comments. Don't look away. The truth is somewhere in the dirt.